to start and other people will keep joining. Class gets over at 4, so let me introduce our speaker today, Mr. Mohan Kancharla. He is a bachelor in computer engineering and postgraduate diploma in management from Calcutta. Also, he has not given up his sort of search for knowledge. He is now doing PhD from Swiss School of Business and Management. He brings over 3 decades of experience both in information technology and consulting. A career TCSer, he says himself, in the class of 88. Spent about a decade in IT services, half a decade in sales and marketing in Europe, and close to 2 decades in consulting. Founding member of TCS Global Consulting Practice, he established and led IT strategy, IT governance, and business transformation practices, global head, sales and delivery support, currently director, method management, PNTS business unit. He is a certified management consultant, has authored 2 books on consulting, Consulting, a practitioner's perspective, and design thinking in consulting, one of the topics that he is talking today. He is also an invited speaker on IT consulting, design thinking, and co-innovator of strategy validation framework, for which his patent is pending. He is a certified in innovation of products and services, MIT's approach to design thinking, and also a certified corporate director, certified executive coach, competent Toastmaster, business storyteller, and TEDx speaker. Mohan was recognized by CEO today as one of the top 100 global management consultants and awarded CEO Today Management Consulting Award 2018. He lives in Chennai with his family. Welcome, sir, and the floor is yours.
Partly because of the emphasis it places on human-centered approach, and therefore the relevance to this Center for Management Management or Human Management. Now, the objective of this talk is to create an awareness and appreciation of this new way of thinking called design thinking. And through that, we would also want to review our understanding of the current way of thinking and also to repurpose ourselves to adopt this new way of thinking itself. That's called design thinking. In the course of the talk, what I will do is that we'll first look at Industry 5.0 and how Industry 5.0 is steering the society towards human centricity. And we look at how business can be imagined, how organizations need to achieve their human balance and self-help needs to be done. And we will look at how marketing can be reframed to reorient its focus back towards the human element. We look at how technology can be harnessed and how design thinking can create an innovation mindset. So those are all the parameters on which we will talk about and understand it. And after that, we will spend some time on the evolution of design thinking, the definition, and some of the frameworks of design thinking that are being used with some illustrations of the application of design thinking in select industries. And lastly, I walk you through a couple of case studies. One would be on design thinking in a digital transformation. The second case study we look at is in terms of design thinking, how it can be applied even in corporate social responsibility. So those are the 2 case studies that we look at. I hope to take about half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and more than happy to take your questions towards the end of the talk, and that's I like to leave enough time for question and answers. Because it's important that you get a chance to understand a platitude of concepts before we try to see how we can apply it or explore further on it. So with that brief introduction, Industry 5.0 century when we talk about Industry 1.0. Industry 1.0 was all about mechanization that was started happening. And a century later, it's when Industry 2.0 came up, and that is when we saw about the electrification that started to happen. And Industry 3.0 came into effect in the 1970s, and here the focus was on automation, followed by Industry 4.0 in 2011, where we moved from automation into what we call as digitalization. Industry 5.0, however, is a very recent one, and it is in effect only since 2020 onwards. And strictly speaking, it's not another revolution that happened there. It is at best a correction or a complement to the Industry 4.0. What got added from 4.0 to 5.0 was the human centricity element, the sustainability, and also creating a resilient enterprise. So those three parameters, when we brought in human centricity, we started to see the element of how we empower people, how we include people itself. The elements of inclusion, empowerment, and talent diversity is what came up in the, from a human centricity point of view. Likewise, sustainability today is all about how we respect our planetary responsibility, be it on the climate change or whatever we talk about. And lastly, it's on the resilient enterprise. How do you create an enterprise that is agile and it can adapt itself to advanced technologies which is changing by the hour? So that's the premise in which the whole Industry 5.0 has been developed. From there, if you move on to reimagine our business, when we look at reimagining business, we are no longer looking at enterprises. Like earlier we had singular organizations, then it became broader in terms of enterprises with multiple organizations or a group company as we call them today. But that itself is extending it forward into what we now call as enterprise ecosystems. What happens in ecosystems is that there are a set of services which are integrated set of services or interconnected set of services that the users can fulfill from different sectors to gain an one integrated experience. A good examples of that would be the digital content. Today you can pick up a news item or an email which you type on your mobile. You can see an alert. From there you can go to your tab and probably type something, or you go to your desktop and you can finish the mail. There is a seamless integration from one device to another which happens in digital content. And it is applied for many apps, many organizations, and so on and so forth. Another good example is what we see in the travel and hospitality industry. So no longer are organizations looking at only an industry cannot survive if it says that I will only look at airline ticketing and so on and so forth. And that is why we have to like something by trip and go away, go and all that start becoming the play. So air travel industry is now, that enterprise ecosystem is now built about the airline, the travel mechanism. It looks like the transport, this is the ground transport we're talking about, any kind of cars and vehicles that is there. And also the hospitality, the hotel industry together. So all of these three together is what becomes the enterprise ecosystem. The adjacent industries are all integrated into one enterprise or one ecosystem. So which means that, and that's going to be very complicated, how do you define such enterprise ecosystems? It's no longer sufficient for us to have only one cohesive strategy itself. This is where there is a dire need for a design-led approach towards creating a strategy itself. And it's going to be difficult. Organizations who have attempted this to imbibe design into their products and their services, they have leapfrogged over their peers. And once they start to do that, it becomes part of their inherent culture, and then they can innovate at scale. They can continuously innovate at scale. So that's the huge advantage of having a design-led approach towards your organization. Now, how does one go about doing that? So you start by defining the enterprise ecosystem. You look at the high-level needs of the customers itself. So again, if I go back to the travel example, we are looking at, I need an airline ticket, I need a ground transport, I need a hotel to stay. And the hotel also could be that, okay, I go on a Monday morning, I have all my meetings in the city center, I need an accommodation there. And the weekend I'm at the clubs, so I need an accommodation. So these kind of a metadata that needs to be available in defining your state. So you look at the top post needs that are there. And you see to identify value pools. Value pools are nothing but what is important in each of this sector or this segment. Once you know the value pools, then you start to define a set of value propositions for each one of them. All of this starts to happen in defining the ecosystem. Once you define your ecosystem, you then start to design the ecosystem. When you are designing the ecosystem, now the emphasis shifts towards the customer itself. Look at it from a customer's viewpoint. What is most important for him? And these are across sectors. So the key components will now be, you have to design an enterprise not just for your own consumer, you have to look at the different sectors, the different partners that exist in all of these entities, the products and the services together. And some of them can be physical, some of them can be digital. So all of this is what which goes into designing the enterprise ecosystem. And last, you build the system itself, and this system should be agile so that it is interoperable and it can be continuously innovated and take care of new and changing needs. So that's how we work on reimagining our business to cater to this new segment of enterprise ecosystems. And to do that, there is an element of organizational balance that is required. And these are again the core principles of design thinking. One needs to have a balance between exploration and exploitation. So exploration is capitalizing on your current knowledge itself. So exploitation is capitalizing on your current knowledge itself. So whatever you have, you mastered it, you want to see how efficient you can make it further and further. But then you cannot depend upon this in totality because there is only so much that you can gain out of a certain knowledge that you have, existing knowledge that you have. So that's the exploration part. Exploitation part. And as far as the exploration is concerned, it is about seeking new knowledge. Organizations can look at new knowledge, can invest and gain more and more new knowledge. But that also is not sufficient on its own because if you start to do that, you will not have any funds to reinvest for further exploration. So therefore, organizations need a balance between exploration and exploitation together. So both of them are required. And to make that happen, you need to adopt again a balance between analytical thinking as well as intuitive thinking. Analytical thinking is proven evidence. It's an element of the past. Something that has happened, it works, so I decided to see how it can happen and take it forward. Intuitive thinking is almost like knowing without reasoning. So they know if you have a hunch or you have an intuition that it will work. Once again, both are required. You need a balance of both. You need analytical thinking to exploit the current knowledge, and you need intuitive thinking to explore the new knowledge that is there. Lastly, we look at the orientation. Orientation is a balance between reliability, it's a proven concept, you know how a certain process works, so therefore you can repeat it and iterate it and take it forward. So there are the objectives is how you can accomplish the particular process. Whereas validity is the objective is to see how you can look at your future objectives, the promised objectives, how do they get verified. So this balance is required in all its dimensions for the organizations to live up to the enterprise ecosystem. From the organizational perspective, if you now move into the human-to-human marketing, this could be a lot more relevant to this audience here. Philip Cooper himself has recently published his book on human-to-human marketing, and he brings in the element of design thinking strongly into the human marketing element itself. So what happens here is that when we start, so it has got three core tenets that are there. Firstly, there is the design thinking element itself because this brings in the element of customer centricity into the picture, a core marketing element that is there. Then he talks about, or another frame that he uses is what we call as socialization, where he tries to look at it's the operating model to make things happen from a human-to-human marketing point of view. And lastly, you need a set of processes which can align both of these together, and those are built into the digitalization part of it. So there is the H2H marketing analogy that is there, and you need to look at all of those three elements and put them together is where it was. And between them, there is an element of mindset that needs to be there. So the mindset change is what happens between the design thinking and the second part, and whereas the management is between the second to the third to the digitalization. And connecting all of them together is what forms the core of the human-to-human marketing. And that's how now start to reframe marketing to look at to take care of the human marketing model. Moving on from marketing into the technology itself. So now when you look at technologies, they need to be built upon intelligent business care. Now when we talk about intelligent business, it is about how soon can an IT organization or an environment or technology care and reinvent itself carefully. Depending upon the current need and the immediate future need, how can I quickly make the shift here? You no longer have the luxury to enhance applications over long periods of time. So how to look at create those intelligent businesses that do together. And the second thing is on the Internet of Behaviors itself. So what is happening is that how does information and metadata drive behavioral changes? Are we prepared for that? A good example here is the entire COVID-19 protocols that we saw. So we were collecting data, we were able to analyze where the hotspots were and so on and so forth, the vaccinated treatment. We were able to build apps and using that metadata, we were able to alter the behaviors of certain people everywhere. So that's a good illustration of the Internet of Behaviors. And then lastly, it's about creating a total experience. Now we are talking about the user experience, the customer experience, the employee experience. How do all of these come together to give us a collective experience is what we talk about in the is how we can harness technology towards the design thinking. Moving on from technology into the innovation aspects, and this is where the design thinking comes into play about. I mean, human nature of services and trust is the key to all human economic activities, and that plays a much larger role than any sales of any goods or commodities or luxuries. So what happens here is that if you look at the center, there is the desirability aspect. What are the users' unmet needs currently? So that becomes the criteria for it. And to satisfy the unmet needs, there is technology that is required. Are there feasible technologies that are available to take care of this unmet needs currently? And lastly, even if I can do it, we also want to make sure that it is viable from a business standpoint. So these three elements together and that intersection is what is called as the trifecta of innovation and a core component of design thinking. This is again something that Gordon talks about in his book on next-stage marketing. And within all of that, there is this human element and there is an innovative solutions element. It's no longer sufficient if you can create innovative solutions without taking care of the human elements itself. It's not about what I can do, but what is needed that is more important in order for this to happen. And then we'll be able to create solutions that are innovative and can be taken forward. So that's that. Right. So that's the first part of the talk that I wanted to probably cover here and share in terms of the context of this particular talk that we're talking about here. So therefore, we are looking at design thinking and it's a human-centered proposition. A human-centered approach for a human value proposition that is there, and it takes into effect both at an industry level, at a business level, at a marketing, technology, and also from an innovation standpoint. So with that context and perspective, now you know what we are trying to achieve here, I'll probably walk you through some of the history, the background of it, and how we can go about doing all of this particular exercise. So even though design thinking became popular more recent in the last decade or so, it has been in existence since the 1950s. Design science was first talked about in Dr. Prof. In the mid-50s, he spoke about that. And from then, in the 60s, there is the element of design science that came up. In the 70s, is when the Robert Simon, the formal term of design thinking was coined in the 70s. And in the 80s is when Don Norman, another famous design theorist, he coined the term of user-centered design as an element. And in the 1990s is when Stanford set up its design school, or the D School of Business. The D School it was called, and Ralph Walker's person set up that school. And lastly was made even more popular and much more wider acceptance through David Kinney and his brother, and the idea of an organization in the early 2000s. Is when design thinking became much more popular, and we know design thinking through quote-unquote the way they express the element of the design thinking. From a definition standpoint, Tim Brock is again another pioneer design thinker. He accessibility, and what methods that we use to take care of our user needs and to make sure that it's technically feasible, and also that it can create a strategy that can generate value for the organization and a market opportunity. So that's probably the formal definition of design thinking itself. And from there, if there are several frameworks for design thinking. There's Stanford's Lee School framework, there's Google Sprints, there are other frameworks from IDEO has its own framework, then we had frameworks Double Diamond from IBM itself. And Roger Martin talks about knowledge funnel, which is a lot more relevant for the knowledge industry and the IT industry. So I kind of leverage much of my work from Roger Martin's knowledge funnel. So these are all the frameworks. But by and large, all that kind of focus upon the same elements. It starts with empathizing, understanding who your users are and what are their requirements. From empathize, you move to a defined phase where you are able to catalyze all the inputs that you got from the empathize and every part of it and convert them into meaningful user requirements. From there you go to ideate. Ideate is about brainstorming about alternative solution options and capturing as many unique ideas as possible there. So another key thing in design thinking is that there is no idea which is a bad idea. Every idea is taken at its face value and it is always built upon from one to another kind of thing. So one doesn't shoot down or put down any such ideas. From the ideate phase we go to prototype. Prototype is about creating a product or a service which is close to the users, close to the end product which the users can start to feel earlier on the side. And finally the test part is when the end product is sent to the marketplace itself. So this is how the frameworks, the Lee School framework work. And this foundation has been true for most of the other frameworks that exist. They might be using different terms to define that, to use from one stage to another stage, but principally and conceptually it is pretty much what they're always trying to use. Now if you start to look at how we apply design thinking in different sectors, one good example is in the banking sector. So there's a work that we did for a bank in one of the Scandinavian countries, and they wanted to create an account for the millennial population. So how did one go about it? They felt that youngsters are not coming into the bank, they're not creating bank accounts, and there's an aging population, and most of the customers are within the higher age brackets and all this stuff. They wanted to create this. So conventionally, what would have happened is that in the past, without design thinking, what you would have done is that you would have taken your existing savings account and you say it's for a million account. So therefore, I take out certain parameters. Okay, age has to be decreased. You create a better passbook or pictures, and you just what you are trying to do is that you are customizing an existing product, not trying to do something that the millennials really want. What design thinking advocates is that, like I said earlier, you need to go talk to your customer to see what does he want. So when we were doing this assignment, we actually went to colleges, we went to malls, we went to sports stadiums. We were talking to the youngsters to understand what is it that they look for. For them, it is not, they never it was a banking event, but they're looking to have an account. And the account that they want to have should be available on the web. Today, that time was only web, but now it should be available on mobile and so on. For them, the real trick in terms of how soon you can move from transaction from one page to another page and how seamless that whole interaction can be, either on a single device or between devices. Now this became a good insight for us to recreate the product. So that we were able to create a better product which is really needed by the customer rather than conventionally using and customizing an existing product. Another good example, now if you look at the insurance industry for example. In the insurance industry, look at the auto insurance. Conventionally, auto insurance is priced upon the price of the asset. The premium is based upon the price of the asset. I mean, if I have a Maruti car, I pay low premium. If I have a BMW, I pay a higher premium. But what they were trying to say is that now let's think differently. What if I look at adjacent industries? What if I encourage ambiguity and look for radical collaboration? So they took a page out of the telecom industry which was getting into this pay-as-you-go model. So what they said is that when do customers make a claim? Customers make a claim when there is an accident or a breakdown or something happens. Now, how does the breakdown happen? What an accident? A breakdown can happen in the garage also, but most of the accidents are happening on the road itself. So fundamentally, the car has to be used or the car has to be on the road something to happen or for you to make a claim. And which cars are more on the road, for example. If you look at our usage, you might be driving a small car to take care of the city traffic during the week, and you might be using a big car for your weekends or whatever long distance travel. So therefore, the amount of time that a car and another car, the cheaper car, is actually the car which is more on the road and which is more prone to an accident, and therefore the chances of them making a claim is higher. So they wanted to shift this whole insurance policy from the price of an asset to usage of the asset. And that became evident once again through this whole design thinking story. I think we spoke about the travel and hospitality industry. This is again a good example for design thinking, a good example for the ecosystem that we spoke about. So, if you want to give some little value-added services for your preferred customers, what airlines typically do is that there is a separate line for a business class, they get higher excess package elements, there is a launch that is available. But pretty much what is happening is that it's happening within that industry, within that particular premises. Now, if I extend that, or if you can complement that with the adjacent industries, if you're able to rent a car for it, if you're able to take care of his hotel for it, kind of thing. So therefore, that is another way how you can build up on it, and you are looking at leveraging ambiguity, that you get leveraging diversity. So these are some of the design thinking principles that I'll come back and forth. This probably is one of the most, the best examples of the application of design thinking. By the way, the presentation will be available for you, and you can check out the YouTube video kind of a thing. You really see the power and the impact of design thinking that it created. This is in life sciences and the life sciences industry. So there was a gentleman, Dudley, who kind of invented and created from GE Healthcare, the MRI machines kind of a thing. He assembled, and it's one of GE's, so not exactly as I mentioned. And they were installing it for the first time at the pediatric hospital. It was in Pittsburgh. And he went really excited to go and figure out what is happening, how are people receiving it, and how is my machine faring and all this stuff. So he wanted to get that first time. Unfortunately, he was shocked when he looked at the whole experience. The parent bringing a small child from the car park and explain the whole scenario to say that okay, this is nothing, he just need to displace it to bite for some time, we find the child is crying, the parents are anxious and so on. And a lot happened in that period. The audience explained quite well. But that whole experience became such a traumatic experience for him. And then he discovered that he heard about design thinking. He actually went to Stanford School and attended the D-School school camp, and he came on to that and he went about recreating the whole thing. So what he did is that he said that he took a human-centered approach and he took the children step by step. He spoke to children. He went to kindergarten schools, he went to art schools, he went to caretakers or pediatric doctors and nurses kind of a thing. And we were trying to really draw and see how the whole system works. At the end of it, they converted that whole a simple MRI, which is more of a medical procedure, into a beautiful invention and different themes of invention. So the whole, let's say, the MRI ward starts from there. The whole pathway is like a big jungle that got created, and when you enter it, they get some costumes to wear, and they start to play a role for the child to play a role. The doctor also might be, the attendants might be a different role. So the whole theme of the development, some were underwater adventures, some were space adventures, and so on and so forth. So much so that the child gets adapted to the whole environment, and then they tell, okay, this is the time that the enemy is coming and you need to race to for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. They make a lot of noise, but you should be disturbed. The amount of preparation happened kind of thing, and then they were able to do that. Turnaround of the entire experience was only possible because of the whole principles of design thinking that is brought about. Focusing upon your end customer itself, see how they would look at it, what is it that they would want, and therefore building upon it and everything. And at the end of it, when the child says, tell their father that daddy can come back tomorrow again, that made Doug's day. He says that's probably the best compliment that he could ever receive. So that's a very classic application of design thinking. You can actually check it on YouTube videos. It's a beautiful video on that, and he explains the whole process itself. And that's a nice okay. And then, so all the illustration that I spoke about till now, we are looking at either products or services. One of the things that I kind of built up an interest in this in about 5 or 6 years back, and then most of my studies and everything was all about products and services. Even now it is much more used there. But if I were to tell someone that design thinking can actually be applied in consulting also, or in advisory service, one actually starts to wonder. And that is what I try to build upon and study more and do it. And I believe that design thinking can be applied in consulting also. All we need to do is that we need to look at a certain set of principles, what I call as the what of design thinking. I've taken about 5 principles of design thinking. We're looking at human-centered design as a principle. We're looking at openness to radical collaboration, embracing ambiguity and diversity, iteratively creating scope-creating solutions, and implement an iterative improvisation. So those become your what of design thinking. And then there are associated practices towards it, which is like the how of design thinking. These practices are nothing but the tools and techniques that you will use. And it's not necessary that all these tools and practices that are listed here, this could be interviewing techniques, empathy maps, or affinity diagram, and a bunch of them. I've taken about 12 of them. It's not that they are new or they came up only because of design thinking. They might be pre-existing earlier, but those are good tools and techniques that can work along with the above practices. And this intersection of principles and practices is what I call as the matrix of principles and practices, is what I call as a design grid. And we see how the design grid can be applied into the consulting world as well. So we now come to the third part of our talk, and we'll talk about some of the case studies. The first one we look at is the design thinking in a digital transformation. So here the consulting scenario is that there is a technology firm who's trying to see as to how they can transform their own internal IT services and operations into the digital world. So that's what they're trying to do. That's the quote unquote the object for this particular digital transformation initiative. And what they have currently is that they have siloed applications which are on the premises. Some are manual and there is even paperwork involved and so on. From that current state where they would want to move through to the digital transformation is to create an ecosystem or a cloud-based global system, a unified system that is available to any associate on any device, anytime, anywhere. So they really want that the 5 A's or the 5 objectives that they've taken up as part of their particular initiative for the digital transformation. And we'll see how that can be addressed through the design unit itself. And before I do that, I quickly want to talk to you about how the typical consulting engagement is done. So that kind of explains how I can really apply the design unit. Any consulting engagement, it goes through a series of processes kind of a thing, and they are iterative in nature. That's why it's called the silent nature of consulting. So one starts with understanding the context itself, you understand the business drivers, what's the context, what's the real need of it. From there, you move to the current state assessment, look at what is available, what functionalities needs to be covered as part of this particular study. Then you try to see the target state, what you require in the future, and what should be the gaps that are currently existing from your knowledge of the current state itself. And then you look at the analysis and the finding, which is a gap between the current and the target, and what are the different type of solution options that you can create. And lastly, it goes to the report and recommendations phase, where a consulting report is given, and certain implementations, certain projects are modeled. So that's how a typical consulting engagement goes through. Now within that, so we will create a design grid for this particular design digital transformation. And the way we go about creating this design grid is that I first look at the phase, and that's the reason why I talked about the phases itself. In understanding context for digital transformation, what are the principles that are most likely to be applicable? So I try to identify, for example, I can identify human-centered design and openness to radical collaboration as two things. And then the next step is that for the chosen principle, what are the best suited practices or the techniques, again within the understanding context phase for digital transformation. So we need to be clear that at any given point of time, we need to know which phase we are in, what are the best suited principles, and for that, what are the relevant practices and other things. So we start to do that in one sequence, then we go to the next phase, and the whole step gets repeated. So that's typically how we go about applying the design. So now if I start with the understanding context, again, once again I will tell you how it's conventionally done, how it's done differently from a design thinking standpoint. Conventionally, what happens is that in understanding context, typically you talk to the CIO or counterpart, you get some brief, you get some documents, and he says, okay, this is what we need to do. And that's all that happens. What design thinking indicates is that it's not the CEOs, it is the end users or the consumers that you really need to focus on marketing. Only when you talk to them, you will know what exactly the real context and what is the real problem. And the way to do that, it would be, for example, one of the principle that I can choose is a human-centered design because I want to focus on my customer. And the practice that I choose would be empathy maps. Now, when you build an empathy map, what happens, again, because the human-centered design also, in this same ideologies that we spoke about, there are corporate executives, there's management, there are sales people, there are delivery people, and each one of them looks at the things in a different way. So it's important that we build an empathy map for each of the different type of stakeholders. So for example, if I take the executives itself as a stakeholder, as one of the key stakeholders, when I do the empathy map, what is it that they're looking at? They look at ideas and efficiency booster. What is the pain that they see? They see lack of time or availability of data about the parameters. What is it that they would want kind of thing? They would want faster response, for example. So that empathy map, the what, how, the pains and gains, all of which can be plotted for the executive level kind of a thing in a certain way, especially in the context of the digital transformation engagement. And similar empathy maps can be built for other stakeholders. For the sales guy, it could be a different set of equations. So that's how we start to use the human-centered design really of the empathy maps within the understanding context. From there, if you go to the current state again, what happens is that a lot of information conventionally is done by looking at what is existing, what are the documents. You talk to some users, they only are able to tell you what their own problems and today's problems are. They may not be able to give you a bigger, wider perspective. Or consultants may not even be talking to real end users. From there, what the design thinking advocates is that you need to bring back the customer to the core kind of a thing. You need to capture the real need behind this particular thing. Probably a couple of decades earlier, when outsourcing by the care outsourcing was very popular. If you look at outsourcing consulting engagement, everybody assumed that it is only because of cost reasons. It need not be. They were assigned that we did because of a certain regulation thing, which has to be implemented in a 3-month window or 6-month window. The companies, banks want it offshore, there are conventional operations to offshore. So you never know what the real need is, and that is what we need to capture in your current state assessment. And to do that, we could look at openness to radical collaboration is one design thinking principle that we're trying to see. So the whole thing is that if I'm doing a current state assessment, am I open to capture all kind of information? I don't have to say that it's only digital, give me only these inputs, or it's only outsourcing, give me only these inputs. You should be able to get all diverse viewpoints, and you should be able to collaborate and accept multiple viewpoints as far as the openness to radical collaboration is concerned. And an associated practice for that would be a business model canvas. The business model canvas is in the graphic there, and it has got 9 different components in terms of customers, channels, products, services, value, cost, revenue, etc. So there are different things. And each one of these we start to see. We talked about the original object, anytime, anywhere, availability of applications on any device. For those 5 perspectives, how does it exist currently? So for example, here in this context, if I take channels are only web applications or few web applications that are there. If you take the customer segments, we have talked about sales, delivery, and experience. So that is all that we know. So we could do the mapping for each of this for the current status. From there, if you go to the target state assessment, conventionally what happens is that there is a one-to-one problem. It's more like a question and answer. Okay, here's a problem, here is a solution. We don't look at, is this a real problem? Can this be solved in a better way? Or can I pick another solution which can give synergies and scale for multiple solutions? It's never like a broader solution. It's always like a question answer, a point solution as we call it. So that is how it is conventionally done, right? But what design thinking advocates is that you need to look at the real problem and you need to respond to it in such a way that you're able to find synergies and you're able to scale that particular solution and sustain the solution over a longer period of time. And to do that, like the current, so here what we say is, since you do not know the future, the principle that I've chosen is that embracing ambiguity and diversity. And the associated practice, just to make things easier, I have now taken the business model canvas again as the same practice under this principle. So therefore, I have already plotted the business model canvas for all the different stakeholders under each of these components. Now we'll also have a target state or a requirement for each of those things. So by doing that, like I said, I took the example of a channel that was there. So web-based applications were the channel that now I need to look at mobile applications. So even for one particular component, I know what the current state and what the required state is. Therefore, I will know how to move from one to another. We talk about segments. In the current state, segments are sales, marketing, delivery. Experience, marketing, and delivery. Now, in the future state, because it's going to go into digital transformation, you might need a set of digital channels or chatbots as a virtual entity. So the channels also start to, customer segments also start to vary. So that's what we get from a target state definition. And then when I go on to the analysis and findings, again, once again, the typical way of looking at it is finding point solutions and not looking at if it works today, I'm good, I'm done kind of thing. But what design thinking tells you is that you need to address ambiguity, you need to get more people together, you need to co-create solutions that needs to be built together. So that is how we bring all of those elements, and therefore the principle that I've chosen here is that co-creating incremental solutions, impactful solutions, and then the practice that I'll take is morphological analysis. Morphological analysis, I guess you might be aware, is that it's just that it's breakups of bigger problems into smaller problems and solves the smaller problems to get better solutions. So therefore, when I look at the processes that are existing in the current setup that are there, if I were to embark on a digital transformation, I need to look at the entire business process. So rather than looking at the processes for sales, delivery, or management and everything, so I can look at sales itself, and within that I can look at the sub-processes. What are the sub-processes, let's say for revenue management, or for client management, or relationship management. So that's how you'll be able to get answers to these morphological analysis. And lastly, when we come to report and recommendations, in the past, consulting engagements typically are done in a 3 to 5 week window or a 6 month window, whatever, and then the consultant submit a report and it's end of story. So then another project has to come, another has to come, they have to go and implement the solutions. But what design thinking allows you is that it actually allows you to prototype the solutions itself. Today, what we do is that we get these different stakeholders together, what we call as a consensus pilots. So we enact the scenarios, we get the recommendation, we try to see is this current state valid from an operations guy kind of a thing, the sales guy might give some answer. So we try to see that and we try to see what is the solution that we give, will this work or not. So it's what element of role play, an element of storytelling and storyboarding, you're able to recreate those journeys, user personas, and able to test that solution itself, and that is how the design thinking can come into play here. So here, again, now since the stakeholders are back, like the understanding context, I now come back to the old principle of human-centered design. I use that, I get my stakeholders together, and now the practice that I'm using is a value proposition canvas. So the value proposition canvas is actually an extension of the business model canvas that the same group which did there. What it does is that it creates a customer profile from your current state of work, and you know their roles and their pains kind of a thing. From that, it creates a value map, it's a customer map and a value map. So through the customer map, you know what their problems are, what the target, what the solution they recommended, and how we generating this associated value together is what we do in the value map. So therefore, through this exercise and through the set of recommendations and illustration, the way we showed about, what we were able to see is that the siloed systems are now actually available anywhere, anytime for the associates on any device. That has been made possible, and that kind of shows that design thinking, the design grid can actually be applied even to an advisory field like consulting. From that, I move on to my second case study, which we talk about design thinking in corporate social responsibility. So this is again, and here I'm trying to use the Stanford Day School framework. So we start with the empathy part. Empathy is all about understanding the needs, and in that we use the principle of the empathy matching. So if you take any CSR initiative, like let's say providing water catering in villages or providing gas in villages. So when you go to this particular thing, what are the needs of this particular villages kind of thing? What's the current distance, so on and so forth, and what are the real needs of the people? So those are all the elements that you capture as part of your empathy, the empathy stage. From there it goes into the define stage. You start to define those needs kind of a thing. And we try to get the user personas. Like who are all the different stakeholders, like the villages. There are women folk, the men folk, those are the things. There is a panchayat and they have a certain role to play. There is government and maybe other people that are there. So all of that also comes to start to play in terms of defining a certain solution. And to do that, you need to baseline what is existing first. If I'm trying to bring in waterways or tap water into the thing, then it's I need to figure out how far are the ponds away, how much distance are they walking, and how do I relate to that sort of thing. You need to actually baseline what is prevailing currently. From there, you go on to the ideate part of it. And ideate is all about looking at alternatives, and looking at various interventions that are required to take care of this particular thing. And one way to look at interventions is through morphological analysis. Again, the whole community can break it into men, the government or the panchayat, men folk, women folk, and maybe the children can start to see solutions for each of these sub-units. From the idea part, we become going to the prototype. Prototype is again, in this context, maybe you test it in one village and see how you can scale it to another village or a small district or maybe one village, one of the villages in each district. To be any pattern that you may want to take as far as how do you look at enhance those particular things. And there you start, you can definitely diagnose. What definitely diagnose does is that you create a certain solution and somebody might come up with an alternative idea. So you try to see this idea same as what we have here. If it's same, you group it. If not, you start another group. So you're able to group certain ideas into different clusters and you're able to create different solutions. It's sometimes the opposite of morphological deciding is you're trying to aggregate ideas together to make better solutions. And lastly, more creating, in prototyping, and this is where the design thinking comes into play. And it is only because of design thinking we were actually been able to, prove the success of these particular initiatives. When you look at evaluating outcomes, typically, any conventional initiators do a cost benefit analysis towards their investments. But in the CSR kind of initiatives, it's more than the cost benefit analysis, it's a question of seeing the impact of the implementation. And to do that impact of implementation, you need to look at both the intended outcomes. I want to provide water connection to 25 villages in this one year. That's one part, that's the intended outcome. But however, what is equally important, are there any other unintended outcomes that are happening because of this? And it happens exactly in such CSR initiatives. Take the example of the water connections. The NGO that did the CSR initiative, water tap water was provided to the houses. But still after 6 months or so, when they went to the villages to observe them, they found that the women folk were still going to the pond nearby, walking 2 kilometers with their vessels, carrying the water and bringing it back. Now one was wondering, why is it happening? That their lives be unintended outcome. So what happens in the villages is that they are used to, when they have this ritual of whatever, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, certain time, all the women folk, the neighbors, etc., all of them go together to the pond nearby, they collect the water, even if it's hardship, they come, because that apparently is the only time that they have for themselves. Here are 5 or 6 women who come together, they go for a walk, they can joke about it, they can talk about their problems, do whatever they can, or get away from their husbands or parents or children or whatever, and that is there, and they don't. If you get tap water, you're taking away this precious time from me, from my friends, and so on and so forth. And this is a beautiful example of an unintended outcome. And the CSR failed because we were not judging these unintended outcomes. I spoke about the gas connections kind of thing. So the villages, typically the houses are all thatched roofs with bamboo, thatch, and canes, and typical houses. Now, so that was good, so they didn't change anything to the roof or the house itself. The MCHV provided gas connections kind of thing. Again, when you go back and start to observe, there was a common complaint that the roof was falling. And people had no clue as to why it was happening. So again, here is another case of an unintended outcome. What was happening earlier is that when they were cooking with firewood or flame, whatever be the case, is that there is smoke, there is heat. It was difficult for the woman, the entire process was a cooking process, but what it was doing is that smoke and the heat everything that was going up into the roof for the bamboo and the thatch roof and everything, it ensured that no turbines were coming in. Now you've taken away the fire, you brought everything else, there is no heat, there is no smoke, all the turbines came back and the roof started to fall. Now this again is the classic case of an unintended outcome, and no approach or no technique or no problem solving approach would actually explore this kind of an unintended outcome. The end users, the intended outcomes and unintended outcomes, talking to those people is what is extremely important. And that is what is a good case of this particular. And lastly, we go to the phase of test, which is the measure and monitor outcomes. You could use a value proposition canvas, and like I said, you need to do both the things. You need to measure the intended outcomes, how well are we doing, and you also need to monitor the unintended outcomes that are there. That's typically what happens in this particular. So with those two case studies, we've actually seen how design thinking is a true human-centered approach. And with a human value proposition. It's a big one, that's what I mean. Thank you. Happy to take the questions.
Maybe I will start, maybe I will try to make it interesting. So I have one issue here, because I'm seeing human-centered approach, which is taking care of human empathy and all that. But at the same time, I was thinking about Steve Jobs and Henry Ford, because when Steve Jobs thought about that screen, right, the touch screen, that time the technology that was available to us was only key, right? The BlackBerry, whatever. So, and what he said incidentally is it's not the customer's problem to say what they want. It is we who will say what they want. It is we will make product for them and they will learn. And today we know how sort of useful this touch screen is, right? But he didn't take into account people's view. And same also in the Henry Ford case, when the first automobile came. Probably people were saying the horses would be useless and all that. So this is probably not the good thing at all. And also another thing I didn't see in your presentation, maybe it's there with you. The sustainability part, how this design thinking, because of course we want many things as human beings. For us, our needs are sort of, it can never be satisfied. So we want many things, but how are we taking care of the sustainability part?
Okay. The first part, of course, Steve Jobs is everything to the contrary in some ways kind of a thing. He believed that customers don't know what they want. But if I also look at it in another way, and get into the same example that you're taking for the touchscreen part, that is one of the customer's unmet needs kind of thing. So they do not know. Even today, another thing, again, a similar unmet need would be that people are still wondering what is the best way to open your front door. Whenever you come, typically you have a bunch of keys, you have papers, you have books, and still there is a door. And nobody was biometrics in the household anyway, kind of thing. So how do you do that? So I think the Steve Jobs and all this stuff was more in terms of the customer's unmet needs. I mean, if I were to take some of the design thinking principles and see, again, this is reverse engineering, I'm not saying I thought about it, but some of the design thinking principles which are probably in some shape and form would be that is the customer unmet needs. And there's more element of radical collaboration that is there. He actually reached out to everyone to make the solution kind of a thing. And I must say, I spoke about another good principle of design thinking is the fail fast kind. It strongly recommends the whole element of fail fast. And he advocated that things are getting to 90% and 50% without even breaking an idea. So that's how it happens in that sense kind of thing. So that's one. The second part of it, in terms of sustainability, now, again, this is, there are two ways I can look at it. You look at sustainability from a physical critical from today's world point of view, what is fast coming out and climate change, or I can also look at it from a sustainability, from a solution point of view. So, if I to answer to take the second one first. So earlier in the consulting itself, when we were doing the outsourcing consulting assignments, for example, we were talking to people and we were working with them. Here are the people who are in their late 50s, who have worked for 20-25 years, they created their application, they know everything, and they have been working on their own, responding to their own managers kind of. Now third party, like whatever thesis or infusions comes kind of thing. So there's a fear that they're taking away their jobs. Okay. Or there could be one vendor, there could be multiple vendors, there's vendor management. Now his entire role is now, instead of reporting to his, not even meeting the geography into an American boss to try to report into an Indian person somewhere else. It's a huge beat on his own morale and all his other travels. Now in that context, if my conventional outsourcing assignment tells me that I need to go ahead to figure out, he's got 100 applications, I can take 50 to offshore, I can do it in 3 months, 6 months, and I just do it. That's my conventional solution. If I do that, my solution will succeed for 1 or 2 years because I'm shadowing, I have this person But now in the same scenario, if I would apply the principles of design thinking, and then bring him into the picture and make him part of the solution, I co-create the solution. So therefore what happens is that you're able to succeed in that and you're able to sustain the solution itself. In fact, this is exactly what I use in the tagline for my books. The first one I called it How to Succeed in the IT Consulting Space, and then the second one, design. When I introduced design thinking, I started to call it as How to Sustain your Success in the IT Consulting Space. So that is how we sustain in the services kind of thing, and that is how design thinking can start to play a role. Right? The second part in terms of the environment and all. So what is happening now is that, I think I mentioned earlier, today's psychology talks over technology kind of thing. Humans, people are willing to pay a higher price if they know that, if it also means some of their personal, inner, deeper needs kind of thing. Take the fashion industry kind of thing, or take the luxury industry of diamonds kind of thing. Earlier it was luxury to buy diamonds and people didn't give it a second thought. Today people are thinking, where are these diamonds sourcing from? Now you have this element of the blood diamonds kind of thing. So there is a conscious awareness that is coming up kind of. And why is mobile phones, the chips that are there. And they're still there and we are here. So that's that. And even also in the fashion industry, the whole element of recycling that has been happening. So reusing, upcycling is what they call it. So indirectly, this is what they're trying to play. And in some ways, design thinking is trying to play a role in this particular thing, creating new products, improvising on new products. I think school kids, they wear these white canvas shoes, kids or something that we call them. And after school, nobody uses them and nobody wants to wear them anywhere outside. My daughter actually started, she draws kind of. So she used to take old canvas shoes, kids, and then painted them. So you can start reusing. And we are upscaling. Again, the whole bottle usage, plastic usage. There are multiple ways to look at it in upscaling. So those are some of the things that probably are contributing to sustainability. I think they have a direct contribution to the sustainability and the climate change. Design thinking probably is a way or an enabler for these kind of things to happen. Or even if it is being done already, it gives you a new way of doing it. It's not an answer also. It's just a new way of thinking to make things happen.
I was in corporate sector. I used to go to it's okay. I was in corporate sector. We used to from corporate sector. We used to go to Sundarban. We have adopted a village, and over there we used to give food every Sunday to every people. So over there, that designing thinking maybe happens. So in ground level, we in the corporate hall, people had a meeting that we should make them empowered with so that they can themselves have their food. We don't have to give them the food every week. So we made a survey how we can make them in corporate sector by empowering them with all the facilities, by giving them education or skills to make them in corporate sectors. So the thing is that my question is that if you know designing thinking, you have a solution. Like two examples you have already gave regarding tap water and that of gas cylinder. What are the solutions implemented after the design thinking is done?
No, what the how of it is. No, it's not that I knew this technique and therefore it gave me the solution. What it allowed me is that because I was monitoring it, like I said, if in the old way of thinking or a classical way of thinking, I may not have thought about those things. Right? So for example, I'm saying water based. We assume that okay, you would either claim that there's a bad water coming and you try to look at it physically, like understanding the water that's coming or not going, it's not recovered water, or some contractor has closed up a tap kind of a thing. Whatever, you give all sorts of reasons to it. It's very unlikely that you would have explored or come upon that this could be the reason for it. And what made me think in that direction is because now I know that I need to look at customers, I need to look at empathy, I need to look at why are they doing certain things. So your mind, there's a mindset change, you're now tuned to ask you different set of questions. So that is what's happening here. So in your example that you spoke about, so today you're providing a certain needs and are providing their care. So you're taking from here and you're servicing it. And like you said, you want to make them self-sufficient. So can they do something different? So what if now you can start to look at alternatives that are there, for example, to make it happen? Is there a way to technology for it to make it happen, for example? Instead of you going on every week, I'm not sure, I don't think there will be, a remote place, not this current or fridge and all this stuff. But for example, what is happening in the cities, many places they're creating is food bags kind of thing. They're creating public refrigerators.
We used to give them rice and all that stuff. But the thing is that in corporate sector, all the head, they had a meeting so that we can, but it was very hard to implement because they were having free meals. They were not want to go for work and all. 50% agreed, 50% was not agreed. How to implement that, it was a very tough thing. I was part of that.
But that could be a good case to explore. I mean, fundamentally, like I said, the reason I look illustrations across industries is to show that it can be applied in the education sector, corporate social things, and all that stuff. It can really apply. I think another CSR project that they did is for the women, basically to get women's hygiene and the pregnancy stages and all the vaccination, the women's health itself. I think they did something with the bindis itself. They started to distribute bindis with RFIDs, started to monitor it kind of a thing. So those are some of the other initiatives that started to happen. So the point is that there is a possibility of how obviously we need to brainstorm more and to see how it can be applied. If we finished the Q&A job, so therefore it's my stage of moment kind of thing, one more thing. So no job is complete without a sales pitch, and especially in a B school like ours here. So this is my book that I published. It's available on Amazon, Flipkart. I actually got a copy for your library, but it is available on Amazon, Flipkart. It's available in ebook, paperback, and hard copy also. What's more important is that all the royalty proceedings, all of that go towards a fund for the autism. It's for the autism children. There's a fund that's been created, and I send all my royalties there. And within that, as opposed to buying on Amazon or Flipkart, if you can buy it on oceanpress.com, it's the publisher's site itself. So what happens is that the royalty is higher, and therefore your contribution to the fund also is higher. It's actually amazing how I didn't know that it happened. Like the margins that Amazon makes is like crazy. When my book sells for 500 rupees and Amazon gets 250 out of it. It's like 50% they make. So it happens, and then there's a production cost and then a point. actually, maybe while we are at it, might as well share this copy with you. My credentials are available there. You can always feel free to reach out to me. I can retain a professionally or thanks so much, Mohan.
Thank you, sir. Very good evening to everyone. And with that, we came to the end of today's seminar. And I would like to invite Mr. Professor Nisigandha to hand over a small memento to Mohan sir.
Thank you everybody. So we have my website.
Thank you everyone for participating and making this seminar a success. And we have some IT elements outside this seminar hall. So if you can help yourself. Thank you. Thank you.